and joining me now is broadcaster turned author Jack Buck. For years and years, Jack, people have been asking you to write a book.
But I'm still a broadcaster.
Right. But why now? Why did you want to write the book?
I don't know if I can really answer that question. Enough time has gone by, and we kind of hit on a certain formula where everything wasn't, I did this and I did that. We talk about things other than Jack Buck. We talk about Gussie Bush and Whitey Herzog and talk radio and talk TV and the Depression and the military and today's life and how things have changed in this country. There's a little bit of poetry in there, a little bit of philosophy, and a little bit about some people who may not be happy with what they read about themselves.
Yeah, I've heard you say that. Now, who wouldn't be happy?
I'm not going to tell you. It's up to them. If they want to be unhappy, they can be unhappy. I'm not going to tell them to be unhappy.
But you had to tell it like it is.
Oh, I did, yeah. Well, I didn't write everything that I knew, but I'm not going to tell the people to be unhappy about what I wrote about.
Now, you told me you wrote about 900 pages. Now, they cut it down to 200. What did they leave out?
It doesn't look like it's worth $24.95 to me.
No,
there's some good pictures in there, though.
It definitely is. What I mean, did you have to leave out stuff that you didn't want to leave out, or is that for the next book?
No, that's the optimum size of the book that the publisher wanted, and it was rather easy to keep it at that, and rather easy to settle on what we wanted in the book and what we wanted to omit. There aren't a lot of stories that I could have put in there. I don't think it's the way we set out to write the book. There probably would be room for another, but I guarantee you, swear. Save the tape. This is it.
This is it. One of the stories in this book is that there was some talk that Jack Buck would become the general manager of the Cardinals before Dal Maxfield got the job. And you said you didn't want it.
Lou Sussman was a lawyer for Mr. Bush and very involved in the baseball team. And he called Bob Hyland and told Bob that he wanted to talk to me. And so I came down and he started asking me about certain people. Would they qualify as the Cardinal general manager? And I said, I don't want to get into this. I don't want to be involved in this at all. I'm a broadcaster. I'm not going to help you pick the general manager. But when he came up with the name of Dal Maxfield, I endorsed him. I thought he'd be terrific because he's a player, he's a coach, an educated gentleman capable of handling people, and so on and so forth. Then Bob Hyland called me at home and he said, you got to get down here. We've got a problem. He said, they're going to offer you the general manager's job tomorrow. Well, you can get fired from that job. A lot easier than you can get fired from my job. So I told Sussman that I wasn't interested. But it might have turned out that I would have been the general manager, and I probably would have been fired by now. And I'd had to write 4 or 5 books to make a living.
Did it cross your mind to
Never.
say never?
No. Why would I want a job like that? And by the way, I couldn't, even if I owned the ball club and had all the money in the world, I couldn't bring myself to pay a player $10 million a year.
Isn't it amazing?
I could not do it. Could you?
No. Although I wouldn't mind if they wrote me a check.
Oh, I'd take it, but I wouldn't give it.
You mentioned the name Bob Hyland. You still miss him, don't you?
I do, because he was a stabilizing influence in our industry, and he did start talk radio, which led to talk TV, most of which is quite good, some of which is terrible, and some of it is nothing more than trash or filth, and I wish it wasn't on the air, on radio or TV, but that's the way it is. Yeah, I do miss him. He's a good guy. We're kind of like brothers.
Yeah. Before we went on the air here, we were taping some promos, and Jack said to me, he said, boy, television has changed. It really has.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it really has. Should I tell that story?
Yeah, sure.
We had a fellow here in town. He was the outdoor editor for the Globe Democrat. It was the start of the deer season. I was doing a TV show on Channel 2, and he had shot a deer, and he strung it up in the studio. He was going to talk about how to dress the deer. We thought he was just going to talk about it, but he took out a hunting knife, and he slit the throat out of that deer, and he ripped it down the middle, and the cameraman passed out, and the camera went up in the air. I almost passed out, and the phone started to ring. Man, what a day that was. But that's typical, the way things have changed. And here we are in the studio, just the two of us.
Right.
You know, it used to be a lot of hubbub with lighting people, and camera people, and so forth in it. And you'd hear all kinds of things on the PA and the speaker. It has really changed considerably.
Yeah. How about the job of baseball broadcasting? Has that changed?
I think it has. First of all, you can make of it what you wish, as long as you have the job and you use common sense and you keep the job. you can do it in almost any fashion you desire. But I kind of think that the owners, the general managers and the sponsors and so forth want everything nice and level and clean. They don't want to create any waves. They don't want to create any rhubarbs. And I said in the book that I don't think Harry Carey, broadcasting the way he used to broadcast, could get a job today because he was so controversial and so hot-tempered on the air. It used to be, and the older folks out there know when they listen to Harry, he'd say, "Here's a pitch, ball four, get him out of there, get somebody up in the bullpen." I used to sit there and say, he's going to get us both fired. But I don't think you can broadcast like that.
He didn't get you both fired, but he was fired.
Not for that.
Not for that. Not for that. But tell me about that relationship.
What
You and Harry when you first got to St. Louis?
Well, he didn't want. He wanted Chick Hearn, who has been a long-time broadcaster for the Los Angeles Lakers.
Right.
And he was in Peoria at the time, and he was Harry's choice. And then after I came here from Rochester in 1954, Milo Hamlin was with us the same year, 54. Then Garagiola came here because Harry wanted Garagiola, and Milo got fired. So I was the odd man out. And then we had Harry Carey, Garagiola, myself. Then we got Buddy Blattner in 1960, and I got fired. And I worked for ABC on the Game of the Week. And then I came back because Garagiola left and Blattner left. And the second time I came back, Harry and I were good friends from then on.
And then he was gone, and it was all
And
yours.
He was gone, and I was here, yeah.
Yeah. But you left to do TV, working on the NBC Grandstand show with Brian Gumbel, by the way.
Why do you have to mention that?
I do want to bring up that you did leave the Cardinals to try to do something else for a while, and it just didn't work out.
Every time I tried TV, television reminded me that I should go back to radio. I'm a radio guy, always have been, always will be, and it was worth a try. I'll probably get fired today for being on with you, but I needed some help over there because I was messing up the program, and that's when they got Brian Gumbel, and he came from California. He was doing news and sports out there, and then we were down in after we worked together, and he did that Grandstand program. We were down in Bradenton, Florida, one day. One spring, and he pulled me aside. He said, "I got to ask you a question." He said, "They want me to do the Today Show. Do you think I ought to do it?" I said, "Come on, what are you asking me for? You already know you're going to take the Today Show. Why are you wasting our time talking about this?" And so Grandstand led to great big things for him, and I am thoroughly happy the way things turned out. I didn't belong in New York. I didn't belong on television. I belong here on the Cardinal broadcast.
I want to talk more with Jack Buck and more about the book, That's a Winner, and we'll talk about his son Joe and his success when we come back. Stay with us. We continue now on Sports Plus with the legendary Jack Buck.
Why do people say that?
You're in 11 halls of fame. That's a legend.
You sound like Tony La Russa. Here comes the legend. Here comes the Hall of Famer. And I don't know whether he's putting me on or kidding me or being nice. Why do you use that term?
Well, because you are. I mean, anybody who's in 11 halls of fame is
one of them is my high school. That doesn't count, does it?
I think it does, actually.
The Missouri
That's
Athletic,
11 more than a lot of us are in.
The Missouri Athletic Club, does that count too?
Sure, but the Baseball Hall of Fame is the most special.
Number one for me, and the Radio Hall of Fame in Chicago, I think, is important, but nothing equals the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Did you ever dream when you first became a baseball broadcaster, not just the Hall of Fame, but you would touch as many lives as you have?
First of all, when I started in 1950 in Columbus, I didn't think I'd be in it this long. This would be 46 years, and this would be my 43rd year with the Cardinals. And when you start the job, you don't think you'll be doing it 46 years. When you go to McDonnell Douglas, you don't say, "I'm going to work here for 46 years.
Right.
First of all, they kick you out after you get to be 62 or 65, and I'm 72, and I'm still doing it. On a wonderful schedule. It's great for me just doing the home games for the most part, maybe a trip or two. But no, you just keep on doing. Pretty soon it's 5 years and 10 years and 15 and 20. And sometimes I sit down and I write out 1954, 55, 56, and I start in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s. And that's a long time. It's about 7,000 baseball games.
Yeah. And you told me you went 35 years without missing a broadcast.
I think about 35 years. I went about 35 years without missing a broadcast or being late for a broadcast on football or baseball or basketball or soccer or wrestling or bowling or any of the things that I did.
As a broadcaster, doing a game, is there a most memorable moment?
Well, there are more than one.
Sure.
You know, they started in '54, and I can remember a lot of things in the minor leagues that happened in 1950 or '51 or '53 in Rochester. Well, when Stan Musial hit 5 home runs in a doubleheader the first year I was here working with Harry, I thought that was astounding. And then, you know, the exploits of Gibson and Brock and Ozzie Smith and winning the pennant in '82 and winning in '64, '66. When you win, it's terrific. And last fall was exciting, but the people have forgotten, I'm sure, how much more exciting it is when you win it all, like in '82, and it lasts all winter, and everybody just can't wait for the next baseball season to start.
Speaking of winning and the World Series last year, the guy who broadcast that to millions of people was your son, Joe. That had to make Papa feel pretty proud to see him up there.
There's no way I can dodge the issue. He's terrific. I don't hear anybody else.
He is terrific, too.
I don't hear anybody else as good as he is. And just last week, somebody gave me a cassette from 1987. I was in the studio doing the billboards, you know, brought to you by and by on radio. And I put him in the studio. He was 19 years old. And I said, do it. And do it in a minute. It's hard to do in a minute. I can't do that. And they recorded it at Clayton Studios. And the guy gave me the cassette. He did it 5 times. The first one was so-so. The second one was better. The third one was very good. Fourth one was better than that. And the fifth one was terrific. And he was 19. So I could tell even then that he had the leaning, you know, with the diction and the phrasing and the timing, just from being around the business to being a good broadcaster. And he knows his stuff, and he's a good kid.
And that's another thing. He is a good kid. But I'd say kid. He's a kid to me. He's a kid to you. But here he is on national television in front of millions of people.
27 years old.
27 years old.
He's been doing the Cardinals for 7 years, I think.
Right. You weren't there. He was there for opening day in Montreal. I know you're doing mostly home broadcasts now, but do you miss doing like the season opener?
Maybe like the season opener, yeah. I watched the game and listened to it at the same time. Then they were playing the next night, and 2 nights later in Montreal, I went out to dinner. I had the maitre d'. I was listening on the radio on the way to dinner, and then I had the maitre d' check the score, and then listened on the way home. And I'm still very, very involved in rooting all the time for the Cardinals.
What do you expect from this year's Cardinal team?
I think they'll win the division again. I think Cincinnati just got a bad break when they lost their closer, Brantley.
Right.
I think the Cubs are going to be a competition, and Houston's going to be good, but I think the Cardinals will win it. You saw them down there in spring training,
yeah.
And we have all the component parts.
As long as they stay healthy.
And we've had a lot of injuries, more so than we had last year, except we lost Gant for 40 games.
Right.
But as soon as Gant starts to hit in Mabry and Jordan and the others, it'll be good. It'll be good. I hope they get Dimitri Young in the lineup and leave him in there for a while, because I think he's going to help the Cardinals change the picture a little bit. And also, as we spoke this spring, I think the line of the Shields is going to have the biggest impact on this club this year than any other player.
If the Cardinals were to win it all this year, next year, are you looking towards something like that to say, I don't need to do this
every time
anymore?
I come out here, you're trying
to get rid of you.
You're trying to get a
No,
scoop.
I'm not.
You're trying to get me to quit. Because we're winning, it's much more enjoyable. And I think I've said it before. I don't think this year is going to be my last year. Next year might be, or probably will be. That's the way I'm looking at it right now. But these things usually take care of themselves. And, you know, who knows what the heck's going to happen tomorrow.
And you're feeling good?
I feel wonderful, yeah.
Jack Buck. The book is That's a Winner, written with Rob Raines and Bob Brigg.
It's a good book, but it's not worth $24.
No, it is. It is worth that. Thanks very much, Jack.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.